He believed he was building a legacy. In reality, he was cultivating abandonment. From a distance, Luca Marchetti looks like the classic patriarch of power, ruthless, composed, untouchable. But beneath the tailored suits and controlled violence is a man trapped inside a cycle that confuses provision with love, authority with protection, and silence with strength. Sophia did not merely leave a husband, she fled a system that would have taught her daughter the same devastating lesson that men can claim to love you while emotionally disappearing from your life. And that is what makes this story larger than romance or revenge. It becomes an autopsy of inherited violence, masculinity, and the illusion that wealth can substitute for presence. But the haunting mystery that pulls the viewer deeper is this. If the letter had reached him that night, would this family have survived, or were they always doomed to break before they could rebuild?
Within the sanctuary of her craft, Sophia's world had narrowed to the delicate construction of buttercream flora upon a towering cake. The shop bell's intrusion was a distant sound, failing to pierce her singular focus on a final, flawless petal as she promised service in a moment. A silence descended, not of peace, but the charged stillness preceding a tempest. Her eyes lifted to meet the architect of a past she had spent 5 years dismantling. There stood Luca Marchetti, a finely tailored predator, whose very presence warped the bakery's air with a power that had once dismantled her world. His gaze held the disbelief of a man confronting a ghost, for she had vanished from his life 3 years ago without a trace. The rigid set of his jaw betrayed an inner turmoil he could not mask. "Sophia," he uttered, the name a ragged testament to her impossible reality. She commanded her hand to release the piping bag, dismissing the tremor that betrayed her composure. "What brings you here, Luca?" Her tone was a thin veneer of ice, barely containing the frantic pulse within a shop that had suddenly shrunk into a claustrophobic stage for their history. Yet, before his reply could detonate, before she could brace for its fallout, the patter of small feet emerged from the back. A child, a storm of dark curls with a chocolate-smudged face, burst into view. "Mama, see my drawing!" "It's our bakery with a rainbow," the girl announced, presenting her art, oblivious to the fractured atmosphere. In that arrested moment, Sophia saw Luca's attention pivot from her to Isabella, his gaze fixing upon the child with a chilling, profound intensity. It was the instant of collision, where undeniable truth landed with the force of a physical impact. A flicker of shock widened his eyes before his features hardened into an impenetrable mask. For Isabella possessed his exact shade of green and gold eyes and a familiar, determined jawline. "Darling, please go finish your artwork in the back. Mama must assist this gentleman." The steadiness in her voice was a testament to will over ruin. With a curious look at Luca, the child retreated, her masterpiece held tightly in one hand. A crushing silence descended, heavy with unasked questions and the grief of lost years. Sophia held his stare, resisting the primal urge to run as she had done 3 years prior. He broke the stillness. "She's 4?" The words were not an inquiry but a declaration, spoken with the calm that signaled an impending storm. His hands tightened into fists. "Yes," she confirmed, her voice a faint thread of sound. "Her 4th birthday was last month. And what was your timeline for telling me, Sophia, when she turned 18 and left for university?" Disbelief gave way to a glacial rage. She understood his fury, the profound betrayal of concealing his daughter for 4 years. "I was shielding her from a world I could not endure." She crossed her arms, a futile barrier against the moment's devastation. "Shielding her from me? Her father?" He advanced and she recoiled, not from fear but from the power he held to dismantle her resolve. From that life, the constant threat, the violence. "So your solution was my complete erasure, to raise my daughter in solitude, denying me any role." His tone acquired a deadly quiet she knew all too well, Her heart beat a panicked rhythm against the oppressive silence. "I left a note explaining it all on your desk that night." "No letter existed," he retorted sharply. "I returned to an empty home. Your belongings gone like you were a phantom." A hand raked through his perfect hair, revealing a fissure in his control. "Can you fathom the past 3 years for me, not knowing if you were living or dead? Wondering if my failure was so great it drove you away, or if a darker fate had claimed you?" The agony in his voice was an injury she had never seen inflicted upon the stoic Dawn. The knowledge that her flight had shattered this impervious man caused something inside her to break. "I'm sorry. Hurting you was never my intent. I had to escape before that world devoured me." "And pregnant," he added. "You were raising our child as I buried myself in work to erase you." A hollow laugh, laced with profound irony, left his lips. "The cruelest part is that I am here to order a cake for my engagement. My assistant is sick, forcing my hand." That revelation struck her with the force of a physical blow, emptying her lungs of air. An engagement. The words were a knife turning in a wound she had no claim to. "Congratulations," she managed, the word a cinder in her mouth. "Don't!" He closed the distance in an instant, his frame dominating the space behind the counter. He was near enough that she recognized his cologne and saw the fresh marks of strain around his eyes. "Do not offer congratulations for a political marriage to a woman I don't love. An heir is required." "That is not my affair, Luca. Our marriage is over. Your choice of wife is your own." "Except an heir already exists, doesn't she? A daughter, 4 years old, discovered just moments ago." His hand rose, pausing near her face. "Does she know about me? Has she asked?" "I said you were away for work." "I couldn't let her feel abandoned, but you never made room for us in your life." "I wanted nothing more than the two of you, but I needed you present, not a specter in the house as you planned another conflict." Her words carried an unintended sharpness, honed by years of isolation. "I refused to raise her in that darkness, to let her feel the same invisibility I did." She watched the devastating accuracy of her statement strike his guarded expression. "I failed you both. That failure has been my constant companion." His gaze locked with hers. "I will know her, properly. I will spend time with my daughter and answer for 4 years of absence." This was not a plea, but the decree of a man who bends the world to his will. "She has no idea who you are, or the peril your world represents?" "Then I will be discreet. Her safety will be paramount, but I am not abandoning her again." His stare was resolute. "And we will discuss every last thing." "Your wedding is weeks away. How do you explain a secret child to your fiancé?" she pressed. "That problem is mine to solve, not yours," he replied. "You gave up all claims on my life when you vanished." The brutality of his words was laced with the pain of her desertion. He was absorbing the shock when a tiny voice called, "Mama, I'm hungry. Is it lunchtime?" Isabella, oblivious that she had just upended their universe. "Your number," Luca commanded, phone in hand, his composure betrayed by a slight tremor. "I'll call this evening. We'll decide our daughter's future." She gave him the number robotically, watching him type her name as he did years ago, when they thought love could overcome his brutal inheritance. His look was an unreadable storm of rage and despair. "This isn't over, Sophia. There is a child and a history of ruin between us." For him, her reappearance was both a salvation and a curse, the most profound event in 3 desolate years. With a final chime of the bell, he vanished. She stood paralyzed, a ghost from her past having just rematerialized and declared its intent. The quiet world she had built was on the verge of total collapse. This was not a reunion. It was the prelude to an inevitable reckoning. The evening became an ordeal of anticipation. Once Isabella slept, Sophia waited in the kitchen. Wine untouched, her gaze locked on her phone. Luca's promise to call was absolute. His word was the one principle he held sacred. Memories suppressed for 3 years now surged forth, a deluge she no longer resisted. She searched the past for a map to the future. Her thoughts drifted to her wedding, to the hopeful 23-year-old orphan who saw the Marchetti name as a promise of family. At 28, he was already submerged by an empire he inherited but never desired. She witnessed the immense strain and believed naively that her love could be his refuge. Their first year wasn't a singular disaster, but a slow accumulation of minor griefs that became an avalanche. A routine of loneliness quickly took hold, his chair vacant 3 nights in 5 for supposed meetings. He would return depleted, a husk incapable of connection, succumbing to sleep alone. She played the dutiful wife, rationalizing his absence as ambition rather than abandonment. One can only face an empty dinner table for so long before acknowledging a marriage to a ghost. Into their second year, she abandoned her efforts to reach him. There was no purpose in offering her world to a man whose heart was a sealed and impenetrable fortress. On the rare occasion his gaze fell upon her sorrow, he would inquire with a bewildering innocence, as if incapable of grasping a loneliness fostered by a husband less present than the mailman. She would offer only a murmur of nothing, for the anatomy of her despair required an emotional energy he no longer possessed. The third year marked the collapse of silence into searing conflicts, pitting his monumental ambition against her fundamental needs. He would argue that his empire was forged for their mutual security. She would counter that she had never coveted his fortune, nor sought his throne. Her singular desire was for him, his attention, his being there, the assurance that she held more value than his next strategic acquisition. They became 2 islands in a single bed, cohabiting strangers. She wept into her pillow while he slept, his conscience appeased by the belief that a full wallet was the measure of a good husband. And then, the revelation that re-architected their world. She was pregnant, a truth she discovered 3 months before she disappeared. She stared at the test in the cold, marbled silence of their bathroom while he was in Milan, securing a deal on their anniversary. Any glimmer of joy was suffocated by a tide of pure dread. A child born into this fractured union was a catastrophe in waiting. She resolved that her child would not inherit her invisibility, nor witness a father who prioritized enterprise over his own blood. In a final, desperate gesture, she orchestrated a perfect dinner, clinging to the hope that the news of an heir would illuminate all he was about to lose. 4 hours past his promised arrival, he offered a perfunctory apology, his devotion fixed upon his screen as he announced yet another emergency. It was the precise moment the bedrock of her hope fractured into dust. He was immutable. The empire was his only queen. The 10-page manuscript she produced that night was a raw excavation of anguish she had internalized for years. It laid bare the corrosion, the profound disillusionment, and the solemn vow to escape before their toxic union consumed all 3 lives. She appealed for his understanding, though she suspected he would interpret her departure as the ultimate betrayal. She left the letter upon his desk, positioned beneath his laptop where it was certain to be found. Then, with a lone bag, she departed from the only real home she had ever known. The ensuing silence was the most brutal confirmation. She had never been a cause worth fighting for. His meticulously ordered life held greater worth. Then her phone rings, at 9 o'clock precisely, wrenching her from the ruins of memory into the urgency of the present. She answers on the second ring, conscious that the season for pretense was long over. It is Luca. His voice is a low rasp, worn by either whiskey or the day's unraveling. The distant symphony of traffic signals he is driving late, an overture that has always preceded a storm. "You said you would call," she observes, her voice devoid of inflection. "I honor my commitments, even when the world is in flames," he retorts. Then comes the demand. "I must see her tomorrow. A proper visit, not the ambush at your shop." Sophia's resistance is immediate. "Luca, this requires a delicate touch. She has no concept of who you are." "Then you will have to instruct me," he says, his voice stripped of all artifice. "Give me the words that will ease this for her, because I am adrift in the territory of fathering a 4-year-old I have only just met." The vulnerability is a seismic shock. The formidable Luca Marchetti never showed a fissure in his armor. "Very well. The park near the bakery tomorrow afternoon. You may be present, but I will remain as a buffer." Then the question escaped her. "And your fiancée? Does she know about Isabella yet?" The acid of jealousy was unmistakable in her tone. "Vanessa will learn of this on my timeline," he declared, his voice regaining its edge. "And I will not conceal my own daughter, regardless of the consequences to our engagement." Sophia's disbelief was laced with venom. "You would incinerate a strategic alliance for a child you just learned exists?" His words were ice. "She is not merely a child. She is my blood. She is a part of my very soul, and I would not hesitate to burn this world to the ground to shield her from harm." An absolute resolve now fortified his voice, precluding any debate. "I failed you, Sophia. I destroyed our marriage in ways I am only now starting to grasp. But my failure concerning Isabella concludes today. I refuse to forfeit another day." That declaration swept over her, a torrent of old currents, hope, fear, and a sentiment perilously close to love. "Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, she concedes. "Do not be late," he replies. "In 3 years, I have not been late for anything that truly mattered." The unspoken implication that she and Isabella now mattered hung between them, charging the air. "And Sophia," he adds, "we must address that letter. Why is this the first I am hearing of 10 pages in which you exposed your soul?" She attempts to deflect, but he persists. "It is important to me." "It is important that you think I callously dismissed your pain," he clarifies, "when in fact I was entirely blind to it." She counters. "That is because you never looked, Luca. You never saw me dissolving right in front of you." The silence stretched before he whispered, "I am sorry for all of it." For every dereliction, for every moment, she was not his primary thought. She terminates the call before another apology can breach the fortress around her heart. And now she stands in this modest kitchen, a pale echo of the mansion they shared, pondering if allowing him back is her greatest folly or the redemption they both so desperately require. Chapter 3. The child who was never meant to be. Luca materializes in the park at 2:55, with the stark precision of a man who appears only for matters of terminal gravity. From a bench, she observes his approach, hands pocketed, his expression a canvas of raw, naked panic she had never before seen him wear. He has traded his suit of power for jeans and a sweater, a tactical decision to appear less like the predator he is. He is performing the role of someone harmless for their daughter. Hey, Isabella, sweetheart, you remember the man from the store? He would like to say hello, if that's all right. Her voice is a light facade over a heart hammering against her ribs. The moment feels tectonic, a summit between two sovereign powers. She is witnessing her daughter meet her father, and he is regarding the girl as if she were simultaneously a winning lottery ticket and a live bomb. Isabella gives Luca a cool, methodical appraisal with their shared green eyes, her head canted like a miniature queen evaluating a petitioner. After a silence that stretches into an eon, she offers a slight smile and holds out a glistening rock. Look, it's sparkly. Luca kneels, entering her orbit without colonizing it. And astoundingly, his hands are unsteady as he takes the stone, treating the fragment of gravel with the reverence he might afford a multi-million-dollar diamond. Whoa, that is a superior specimen of rock. You have a gift for discovering treasures. His voice is a murmur, a register she has never heard, as if one loud word could shatter the delicate equilibrium. I have many more. Want to see? She is already unburdening her pockets. Stones, leaves, a crushed wrapper. A tempest of emotions crosses Luca's face as he inspects each artifact from her collection as if it were a royal scepter. This is a truly remarkable hoard. You are an expert at finding the finest things. Mama says I have a gift. Isabella is luminous, utterly oblivious to the monumental weight of the moment. And just then, Luca's defenses are completely annihilated. His expression transforms from wary stranger to devoted father in a single, silent beat. Your mother is an exceptionally wise woman, and she is correct. You possess the gift. He glances at Sophia over their daughter's head, and an entire narrative unfolds in his eyes. The shock, the regret, and a ferocious love for this small being he has just met but would already die for. Can you push me on the swings? Mama gets tired. Isabella simply reaches for his hand, her trust unconditional. Children possess an instinct for an authentic heart. Luca's fingers envelop hers as if he were holding the most priceless and fragile object on earth. I would be honored to push you on the swings. You lead the way, boss. They move toward the playground, and she follows at a distance, granting them space yet remaining close enough for a tactical retreat. She is utterly unprepared for the visceral impact of seeing Luca lift Isabella onto the swing with such delicate reverence and begin to push. The child's laughter cascades through the air as she implores him to go higher, and he complies, a hand always ready to secure her. The scene is so devastatingly ordinary that it feels like a physical blow, a vision of the life that was stolen from them. 20 minutes later, Isabella proclaims she is thirsty, and Luca is instantly on alert, offering to procure juice, committing her preferred flavor to memory as if it were crucial intelligence. He comes back with her apple juice and a coffee for Sophia, prepared exactly as she once liked it. Their fingers graze, and an old current arcs up her arm, a sensation she deliberately ignores. She is incredible. So intelligent and luminous, perfect. He says this softly while Isabella is absorbed with her juice box, his voice heavy with unshed emotion. Thank you for raising her so well, for providing her the things I failed to. She should have the world. Parents who are present. The barb finds its mark, but he absorbs it, a penance he seems to welcome. But I want to be present now. I want to build myself into the father she is owed, even if I have no blueprint for it. It is not that simple, Luca. You inhabit an entirely separate life, with a fiancé who will not welcome a secret child. Then I will manage Vanessa. That is your chaos to contain. He turns to her then, collapsing the space between them. Abruptly, he is too near, close enough to see the gold in his eyes and to breathe the scent that unlocks a vault of memories. Your sole concern is how we navigate this together. I refuse to recede into the shadows once more, not with the undeniable proof that she lives. My intent was never your disappearance. The core issue is your grasp of permanence. You cannot appear in her world only to dissolve at will. That version of me is a ghost of the past. Sophia, your absence broke me apart in a way that was fundamental to my rebuilding. His hand ascends, intending to trace her face, but it halts mid-motion. Listen, I know I've earned no right to a second chance, yet I'm begging you. Let me prove the man I've become for her and for us. Promises are empty vessels without the substance of action. Have you forgotten you've made these vows before? Your vision of us meant my solitude for 90% of our life together. So watch me. Call out every lie the moment I stumble. His stare was a furnace of raw conviction. He levels at her the same piercing gaze that dominates boardrooms. I am not asking for blind trust. I am asking for the opportunity to recover what I was foolish enough to throw away. But before she can answer, Isabella returns, a small sentinel clinging to Luca's legs. He scoops her up in a single fluid motion, his hold possessing a primal, effortless quality. Can we come back tomorrow? Today was the best day ever. Above their daughter's head, Luca's gaze finds hers, a silent petition for permission that held the weight of a promise. She offers a subtle nod, recognizing that to deny this bond would be a profound cruelty, even as terror coils within her. Tomorrow, at this time. However, your fiancé must be told of Isabella's existence before this moves forward. She deserves the truth. It's as good as done. A faint yet authentic smile touches his lips. It was the first genuine smile she had seen from him since he had fractured her reality just the day before. Thank you for this, for letting me see her, though I know I don't deserve it. This is not for your benefit. It is entirely for hers. She deserves a father, even one who was a catastrophic failure as a husband. A valid point. He carefully lowers Isabella to the ground. I'll be back tomorrow, princess. Maybe you can show me the rest of your rocks. As she watched him leave, a cold realization settled in. The fortifications around her heart were already starting to crumble. Seeing him interact with their child resurrects feelings she believed were long dead and buried. They are treading through a minefield, attempting to raise a child with the man whose world she fled to save herself. She cannot know if this is the path to peace or to a new chapter in the same war that destroyed them. Chapter 4. Her Truth. And so, Luca began his campaign. He appeared each day for a week with the precision of a clock. Each time he brought a modest token for Isabella, a storybook, a toy. Once the token was an entire castle that threw the girl into raptures and forced Sophia to question his interpretation of small. She watched as he built a bridge to his daughter, one piece at a time. While Isabella falls completely under her father's spell, Luca transforms into the archetype of the perfect father. He is making amends for lost time with the daughter who now views him as a legend. But on the 8th day, following the timeless ritual of delivering the sleeping child to her bed, the inevitable confrontation materializes. He re-enters the living room, and the silence between them becomes heavy with things unsaid, where she feigns occupation, tidying toys that are already in order. His voice, a low and grave timbre, made it clear there would be no escape. She ceased her charade with the playthings and turned to him, accepting that he had earned this explanation despite the cost of reopening scars she had fought to keep closed. Her answer was a blade. I already told you. I left because I couldn't breathe. I was a ghost in your life, while your empire was the real wife and I was just an afterthought. But Luca pierced through the excuse. That is a version of the truth, not the core of it. I've retraced the dates. You were pregnant when you disappeared. A silent siren went off in his mind. The woman he married was built around the concept of family. He closed some of the space between them, but kept a palpable electric gap. He understood. It was not solitude you were escaping, it was fear. So name it. What terror was so absolute that it drove you to bring up our child alone instead of staying by my side? And with those words, his insight hit her with the force of an impact. She had believed him blind to her inner world, but he had seen past her defenses, leaving her nowhere to hide, and the floodgates gave way. I was afraid of your life, of the violence, the ever-present threat you wear like a shadow no matter how you label it business. Her words were a cascade of buried fear. I would see you come home, marked by fights and wrapped in silence, answering midnight calls that leached the light from your spirit. I saw you were trapped in a world with only two exits, a prison cell or a grave. He retorted. You knew the contract when you became my wife. You knew what my family was and the price of my position. Her voice was a bare whisper. I grasped it intellectually, but not in my heart. Not until I realized loving you meant preparing to mourn you at the hands of a rival. She hugged herself tightly, a desperate physical gesture to keep from shattering completely. And then I discovered I was carrying a child, and the stakes were no longer just my own survival, but hers. I refused to bring a daughter into a reality where her very existence would paint a target on her back. Then, a profound comprehension illuminated his expression. The raw, instinctual terror that had propelled her escape. When he finally spoke, his voice was frayed with a feeling he struggled to master. So you vanished. As her protector. You took this path alone to insulate her from my world. I chose to save her from an existence of looking over her shoulder, of being a pawn in your enemy's games. The tears now streamed freely, ignored. And yes, I was also fleeing the agony of loving someone who would never put me first. But my primary motive was to offer Isabella a life of normalcy, a childhood free from bodyguards and security drills and the low thrum of constant threat. He crossed the space in 2 steps, enveloping her in his arms. Her attempt to pull away was brief and pointless. He held on as a dam of pent-up sorrow, terror, and relentless love finally burst. His voice was heavy with unshed feeling. I am so sorry for all of it, for being the source of your fear when I should have been your safest harbor. His voice cracked, and she felt his tears on her hair. You did what any mother would have done to protect Isabella, and I hate that I was the reason you left. I hate that my life is so fractured you felt I couldn't be your shield. She corrected him. My faith in you was never the issue. I never trusted the creatures you did business with, men who view a child as a bargaining chip. And your fear was justified, he conceded. That world is as brutal as you conceived it to be. But you misunderstood a fundamental truth. My very existence is a shield. My rivals understand that harming my family is an act of suicide with no reprieve. His grip on her intensified, a mark of ownership. If I had known Isabella existed, she would have been surrounded by impenetrable security, safer with me than hidden where I could not reach her. Or she would have been a walking bullseye for every enemy you have, she countered. He fired back. Perhaps, or perhaps the fear I inspire would have been her greatest defense. He pulled away, his eyes seizing hers with grave intensity. But that is not the heart of the matter. The point is that you should never have had to face that impossible decision by yourself. You should never have been so shattered that running was the only path you could see. Then she hit him with the raw, unadorned truth. I loved you so much it was erasing me, watching you pick your kingdom over me, time after time. Her last walls turned to dust, and I needed you. Not your money, I needed you here, your attention, your hours. But the syndicate was your god, and I was never going to win against that. You are right, he conceded, his tone empty with remorse. My failure was total on every level. I was so obsessed with forging an empire that I torched the one treasure that made it worthwhile. He stroked her cheek gently. But I have changed. 3 years without you showed me that power is a hollow shell without someone to share it. That is a lovely sentiment, Luca. But it sounds just like the vows you made before, when I begged you to be more than a phantom in our home. He replied, because I did not grasp the magnitude of my loss until it was absolute, not until the silence of our house screamed your absence, and the truth of it finally crushed me. His voice dropped to almost nothing. For 3 years, I worked to forge myself into a man who could deserve a chance I was sure was lost forever. I created legitimate businesses, stepping back from the shadows, all on the slimmest of hopes that somewhere you would sense I was trying to be better. She finally asked the question suspended in the air. And where does your fiancé fit into this narrative of atonement? The envy in the room was a physical presence. He answered without hesitation. Vanessa's a corporate merger, a deal I signed when I was certain you were gone for good. It was a way to satisfy my family and put my heart on ice. His facade crumbled, revealing a profound vulnerability. But then I found you again. I met Isabella, and I knew I had just been moving through a life without a soul, building a future with a woman I do not love, when the only one I ever wanted was right here, still despising me for shattering our world. Her response was a quiet negation. I don't despise you. I never could, even when I should have. My love was simply too strong to continue letting it break me. He seized the opening. Then let me fight for us now. Let me prove my transformation, that I am finally the man you needed me to be 5 years ago. Chapter 5. The perfect fiancé, and fate, it seemed, answered this plea with an antagonist. Vanessa Castellano appeared 3 days after this fragile truce was declared. She manifested at the bakery's busiest time, a curated vision in couture that eclipsed Sophia's entire livelihood. Vanessa was the archetype of Luca's world, a figure of cold refinement, bred for a realm of power in which Sophia could never hope to survive. The sight of this woman's dismissive gaze sweeping over her modest shop ignited a fire in Sophia's spirit. Vanessa's words were venom-coated in velvet. You must be Sophia. Luca spoke of you and your quaint little enterprise. The contempt was tangible, yet Sophia countered with a vacant, practiced smile, recognizing a threat that operated far beyond the physical realm. So you're Vanessa. Congratulations on your engagement. Luca told me he was getting married. Sophia's voice was a carefully engineered monotone, a shield against the internal devastation of this performance. Both women understood the unspoken truth. Vanessa now possessed the life Sophia had cast aside. Thank you. The revelation of Isabella, however, was a genuine shock. In their world of calculated alliances, such secrets were a deep fracture. A 4-year-old child was a seismic blow. Vanessa moved toward the counter with predatory grace, her gaze assessing Sophia as an imperfection to be erased. But children are a gift, aren't they? I am certain we can make this co-parenting arrangement work. She weaponized the term co-parenting, framing Sophia as an unfortunate footnote to their perfect narrative. Sophia physically restrained herself from retorting that Isabella was the foundation, not an afterthought who would long outlast Vanessa. I'm so pleased you're being reasonable. This isn't ideal for any of us, but Isabella is the priority, and I will be an excellent stepmother. Children require stability. The subtext was a chilling declaration of intent, a promise of a different kind of war which sent a frost through Sophia's veins. It was a clear maneuver to usurp control of her daughter's life and methodically erase Sophia's influence. In fact, Isabella could stay with us at the estate. She should see what a more suitable environment is like. The sheer audacity of this territorial claim, labeling her home inadequate, provoked a surge of raw fury in Sophia. But before Sophia could unleash her fury, the chime of the bell announced a new player on the board. Luca appeared, clearly ambushed by the sight of his fiancée in this space. "Vanessa, what are you doing here? I thought you were lunching with your mother." The tension in his voice confirmed this was an unsanctioned maneuver. His body instinctively formed a barrier between the two women, a physical preparation for conflict. "I was done early, so I came to meet Sophia about Isabella. Since we're all becoming family, it's best we get along." Vanessa's smile remained fixed, but her gaze was a cold instrument of calculation that deeply unsettled Sophia. "I was just suggesting how wonderful it would be for Isabella to stay at the estate, to have opportunities she can't get here." Luca's features became a void, the controlled emptiness he employed to conceal immense fury. He articulated through a clenched jaw that matters concerning Isabella were his and Sophia's alone. She is her mother, and the only one who determines what is best for our daughter. Vanessa's retort was laced with acid. "Our daughter. How touching. You sound as if you've been a father for 4 years, not since last week." With that, her polished veneer finally fractured, exposing the raw animosity simmering underneath. "I am simply trying to manage this complication in our lives. You ought to be grateful for my understanding." Luca's dismissal was swift and absolute. "Isabella is not a complication. She is my daughter, and I could not care less how her existence makes you feel." His tone shifted to the cold finality of a judge delivering a verdict. "I believe you should leave. Now, Sophia and I have matters to discuss that are not your concern." Vanessa's features twisted in fury, her hand making a fleeting, aborted gesture toward her stomach. "Fine, but we must have a serious conversation about priorities, especially since my condition makes this timing so very challenging." Her veiled threat filled the air with the tension of a detonator being pressed. Luca's expression was an unreadable stone as he processed the implication of her gesture and this claimed condition. "And what condition might that be, Vanessa?" "I'm pregnant, about 8 weeks, which is why this wedding must happen soon, and why your secret child with an X is such a profound problem right now." She delivered the lines with a sniper's precision, observing the devastating impact on her targets. "I know this complicates matters, but let's be adults and resolve this for everyone, including my child and yours." A heavy, suffocating silence descended. Sophia felt emotionally annihilated, a sense of profound betrayal warring with the logic that she held no claim to him. He simply regarded Vanessa, his face an enigma of shock and a flicker of something more, perhaps disbelief. Sophia recognized the imperative to retreat. "Congratulations on the baby. I'm sure you two have much to discuss, so I will give you your privacy." Her voice seemed to emanate from a great distance, alien to her own ears. She was already in motion, retreating before either could respond, unable to bear witness to the construction of their future upon the ruins of her own. "Sophia, wait. It's not what you think." Luca's appeal trailed behind her, but her retreat was absolute. She did not look back. She did not stop until the office door was secured. Her body braced against it as she struggled for air. Beyond the door, a war of words erupted between Luca and Vanessa, the sounds dulled but potent. The bell signaled a departure. Heavy footsteps approached her office. A soft knock followed, a sound completely at odds with the fury she knew he possessed. "Sophia, please open the door. I need to explain." "You don't owe me an explanation. We are not together. And whatever you do with your fiancé is not my concern." "It is your concern when she's faking a pregnancy to manipulate us, to make you believe I've moved on when I haven't so much as touched her in months." His allegation arrested her motion, her hand frozen above the knob. The convenience of Vanessa's timing now appeared deeply suspect. "Why fake a pregnancy? What would she gain?" His reply was a tactical deconstruction. "Control, leverage, insurance that I won't end the engagement now that I have a reason to reconsider my life." Sophia heard the heavy weight of his body lean against the door. "You must believe me, Sophia. Something about this is fundamentally wrong." Her timing is too precise, and she's been acting strangely for weeks, Sophia countered with the undeniable truth. "But even if she is lying, you are still engaged to her. You're still building a life that has no place for me." His response was immediate and stark. "A life I do not want with a woman I do not love. It was founded on something that was broken long before you returned to me." She turned the lock, compelled to witness the truth in his eyes. His expression was one of exhaustion and torment, yet underscored by a profound sincerity. "What are you trying to say, Luca?" "I'm saying this engagement was a terrible mistake, made by a man who thought he had lost his only chance for happiness. And finding you again made me realize I would rather have nothing at all than live a counterfeit life." Chapter 6. Crumbling Lies. 2 weeks following Vanessa's theatrical claim, Sophia observed Luca and Isabella together, attempting to disregard the portrait of a perfect family they created. His comfort with Isabella was a stark contrast to their initial, awkward meetings. His nightly visits were centered entirely on his daughter. This dedication was a source of both solace and dread for Sophia. To believe in his transformation was to risk a second, more complete devastation. Isabella offered a proud creation, a child's rendering of their family unit with Luca positioned at its core. Sophia watched his features soften with a tenderness reserved only for his daughter. In her presence, the formidable armor of the dangerous man he was seemed to dissolve. "Wow, this is incredible, princess. You're becoming such an artist. That's you, that's Mama, and that's me. We are a family now, right?" The question, posed with a child's pure conviction, landed with the weight of a physical impact. Sophia observed Luca's movements cease as he processed the profound gravity of her simple words. "If we are a family, that means forever." His voice cracked the final word as he pulled her into an embrace she welcomed. Sophia was forced to avert her gaze, confronted by a vision of the very life she had renounced years prior. Her phone buzzed, announcing a text from an anonymous source. A single image, devoid of context. Her curiosity led her to open it, revealing what seemed to be medical records bearing Vanessa's name. A quick comparison of the dates against Vanessa's 2-week-old narrative revealed a stark inconsistency. A second message materialized with a chilling inscription. Thought you should know who you're dealing with. The document confirmed a negative pregnancy test from 6 months prior, directly contradicting Vanessa's recent claim of being 8 weeks along model. The pieces refused to align. Sophia met Luca's gaze, a study in concern over her sudden shift in composure. Wordlessly, she extended the phone to him. This deception was a weight for him to carry, not her, and a tide of immense relief washed over her with the knowledge that Vanessa was a charlatan. He scrutinized the photographs with a laser focus typically reserved for his enterprise. She observed the swift cascade of emotion across his features, from bewilderment to disbelief, and finally to a frigid rage that solidified in under 5 seconds. He had processed the images and their damning implication for the woman he was to wed in 6 weeks. The source? An anonymous delivery. I can't speak to the sender or their motive, but the documents appear authentic enough to warrant investigation. Marco will verify this now. If it holds, Vanessa has orchestrated this pregnancy from its inception. He returned the phone, his hands vibrating with a rage he could barely contain. Her timeline never sat right, but I lacked the leverage to confront her. But to fabricate a pregnancy, what could be the endgame for a lie so colossal? It was her insurance policy. A shackle to guarantee this union, crafted the instant she discovered Isabella's existence. He stood, pacing, the restless energy of a predator returning, as his mind mapped the architecture of her betrayal. She understood that discovering you, our little girl, would shatter her world. So she fabricated a calamity to bind me with guilt, to force my hand. From her drawing, Isabella looks up, her young intuition registering the atmospheric poison she cannot name. Daddy, is everything okay? The question is a blade that stills him. He drops to her level, containing hurricane of rage he feels for Vanessa, refusing to let it touch the shores of his daughter's innocence. I am fine, my princess, just grappling with foolish office matters. He gently swept a lock of hair from her brow. Take your drawing to Mama for me. I have to place a quick call. He was already moving down the hall, his voice a deep growl as he undoubtedly instructed Marco to authenticate the files and initiate a thorough investigation. Isabella clambered onto the sofa beside me, excitedly detailing her vision to add a canine to her creation. I offered nods, though my mind was a vortex, dragged into the depths of Vanessa's scheme and what it signified for our future. Luca reappeared 15 minutes later, his expression a mask of granite. It was the countenance of a man who has reached his judgment and is prepared to enact his sentence upon any who would obstruct him. Marco confirmed it. The documentation is 100% genuine. Vanessa had a negative test 6 months prior with 0 recorded medical appointments following her announcement. So, it's true. She has been spinning this fabrication all along. There is no baby, no pregnancy, only a snare designed to chain me to a future I will not accept. He settled onto the couch next to me, cautious not to break Isabella's concentration as she remained immersed in her art. This concludes this evening. I am terminating the engagement, calling off the wedding, and notifying both families that my role as a chess piece in their ambitions is over. Your family will be incensed. You are demolishing a calculated alliance for a former wife and a child they are unaware of. Then their fury is of no concern. My days of sacrificing myself upon the altar of commerce are at an end. His hand sought mine, his fingers lacing through hers with an intimacy that felt both deeply remembered and entirely novel. This is the choice I should have made 5 years ago, when you begged me to prioritize our existence together. I should have abandoned everything to build a life with you, rather than letting obligation reduce ours to ash. Those remain eloquent sentiments, Luca. Dissolving one promise does not mend the one we broke. You are correct. Words are empty vessels without actions to fill them. He pressed her hand gently. For that reason, tomorrow, I will officially introduce Isabella to society as my child and my successor. I am declaring her under my ward, and that any menace toward her will be considered a signed death warrant. Doing that will place a colossal target on her back. You are summoning the exact peril I struggled to protect her from. Alternatively, it will render her inviolable, as the world will understand that to injure her is to wage war against me and all I control. His tone was adamant, a bulwark of conviction. I comprehend your apprehension, and I respect your motivations, but we cannot conceal her from the world indefinitely. I will not conduct my life as though my own child is a liability to be shielded from potential dangers. My intention was never to conceal her. I simply needed a reprieve, a chance to strategize before casting her into the fray. And that is what we have had. 2 weeks, a fortnight in which I have learned our daughter and grown to adore her completely. I am now prepared to publicly acknowledge her and to weather the ensuing storm. Isabella broke the tension, clambering into his lap with her artwork, entirely oblivious that she was the quiet center of a brewing cyclone. See, I added a puppy and a kitten and a small bird. We need to have every animal. He drew her into his arms reflexively, his hold a fortress. His gaze met mine over her hair, his eyes a conflict between unyielding resolve and a quiet appeal for my faith. You shall have every animal you can dream of, princess, I promise. Observing them together, I felt the final fragments of my resistance start to crumble. It is a profoundly frightening act, permitting hope to sprout in a landscape that has known only desolation, to trust that this man, holding our daughter, has at last transformed into the partner she and I required. Chapter 7. The Shedding of Illusions. The confrontation with Vanessa occurred that night. My sole awareness of the event was a call near midnight. Luca's voice stretched thin with controlled rage and a deep undercurrent of release. He verified the engagement was utterly destroyed, that Vanessa had made no effort to defend her fabricated pregnancy once confronted with Marco's evidence, collapsing into a confession driven by her terror of his abandonment, a motive that could almost inspire sympathy, if not for the pathological manipulation that underpinned it, which I found repulsive. The primary detonation happened 2 days after, when Luca convened a family summit to announce Isabella's identity and his decision to designate her as his heir, an act that shattered generations of established custom and inheritance. I did not attend the meeting. Luca insisted that only kin should bear witness to the initial eruption before exposing Isabella to the aftermath. He contacted me the moment it concluded, his voice a ravaged landscape of fatigue, fury, and a peculiar, disquieting contentment. My father vowed to disown me. 2 of my uncles walked out, and my cousin Antonio proposed that I purchase your silence and erase Isabella from our history. His tone was shredded, worn thin from what could only have been hours of conflict. But I allowed for no ambiguity. Isabella is my daughter and my heir. Any who takes issue may address me directly. The era of placing the organization above my own lineage has ended. Luca, you cannot just incinerate your whole existence, severing every connection for a daughter you have known for a mere 3 weeks. I am tracing a path across my small living room as Isabella sleeps, unaware that she is now the epicenter of an internal conflict threatening to fracture one of the city's most formidable crime families. His answer was immediate. It is already done. I have enacted the decision I failed to make 5 years past when you required me to choose you over the business." His voice held absolute certainty, the cadence of a man whose feet are planted firmly on solid earth. "My father is free to cut me off. My own ventures and private fortune are sufficient to sustain us without any reliance on their capital." But she countered, "And the danger? You have just marked Isabella as a point of leverage for every predator who perceives your heir as a weakness." He clarified this was precisely why he had instituted a security detail comparable to that of a national leader. A specialized unit was now tasked with the singular mission of guarding their daughter 24/7. She could detect his agitated movement over the phone, an echo of her own frantic steps. He acknowledged, "I am aware of your fear," but asserted that concealment was never a viable long-term strategy. At least now every corner of their world understood that harming his child meant invoking a reprisal with no possibility of escape. She shot back, "You are wagering the life of a 4-year-old on your fearsome renown." He responded, "My wager is on the 15 years I invested in forging a reputation of uncompromising brutality toward my adversaries." Just as his tone gentled, poised to request her faith, a sudden forceful rap sounded at her door. Her pulse stopped cold. It was approaching 1 in the morning, an hour that seldom heralds good tidings. She drifted to the entrance like an apparition, Luca's strained murmur in her ear, while she hazarded a look through the spyglass. It was Luca, positioned on her threshold, appearing as if he had just survived a campaign, his face a map of fatigue and unshakable resolve. She challenged, "Why are you here at 1 in the morning?" His answer was direct. "I needed to see you, both of you." He required the tangible assurance of their well-being, a way to ground his declarations in his own physical presence. The moment the door swung inward, he closed the distance, gathering her into a hold so intense, so raw, it communicated the full savagery of the trial he had just faced. And for a brief interval, she allowed herself to surrender to it, acknowledging a deep-seated need she had not known she possessed. Her words, a stark truth against his heart. "Your family will disown us. They can never accept me or Isabella." He was prepared for this. "Then I will build my own house on a foundation of loyalty and affection, not bitter blood ties." He frames her face, his gaze intense. "I reject their code. I will no longer sacrifice my world on the altar of tradition." She challenges his bold proclamations. "But when the wreckage settles, and you see all you've destroyed, will you resent us for it?" He dismisses her fear in a heartbeat. "Never. The two of you are worth more than that entire empire." "I have changed from the man I was 5 years prior," he states, "not the prideful fool who wouldn't fight for you." She offers her ultimatum. "Then prove it through your deeds, not more eloquent promises." His acceptance is immediate. "I will, every day until your faith in me is restored." He starts then, pleading for her pardon, not as a deserved reward, but as a necessary confession so she understands his newfound clarity. His voice cracks as he confesses, "For years you fought for us. While I was so lost in building an empire, I didn't see my queen was sinking." After her departure, his pride had curdled into rage, not sorrow, blaming her for leaving a marriage he had already abandoned with countless tiny betrayals. This raw, unfiltered truth unlocks something long seized within her, and tears held back for years finally escape. Through a fractured sob, she says, I waited so long for you to truly see me, to choose me, to be more than just a task to complete. His reply is heavy with remorse. I know, and I regret every moment I made you feel invisible. The past is immutable, but he begs for the opportunity to construct a future from the debris. She gives voice to her deepest fear, that his return means repeating their tragedy, watching Isabella's heart break for a father consumed again by his empire. His response is a quiet challenge. Then hold me accountable. Challenge me, he insists. Whenever my old patterns emerge, make me demonstrate daily that you are both my universe. The idea exhausts her, an eternity spent guarding his spirit. He acknowledges her silent point. That is not your responsibility. He recoils, his stare firm and resolute. Then comes the real move. This is why I'm enacting tangible changes, relinquishing command, withdrawing, to be a father, not just a figurehead. A cynical laugh escapes her. Your clan would forbid it. His answer is ice. My family's opinion is now irrelevant. He was following his own convictions, not a script dictated by his lineage. A small, authentic smile appears. I choose us, Sophia, the family we made, over the one of my birth. There is no retreat. She grapples with the information, whispering, "This is completely insane. You are dismantling your entire world for a woman who left and a daughter you met just 3 weeks ago." His response is simple and total. The best decision I've ever made. He leans forward, a deliberate kiss, a silent bargain for a second chance. Her terms are direct. 1 day at a time, reliability, not sweeping declarations. I can do that, he promised. I will. In that instant, inside her modest apartment as he surrendered a kingdom for them, a delicate hope started to flourish inside her, that this time their story's conclusion might change. Chapter 8. One decision, a journey toward atonement. Over the next 6 weeks, Luca upheld his promise. He was consistently present, a steady force against the tempests in his empire and his family. She watched the specter of a husband she'd left become a father who knew Isabella's preferred color and how to slice her bread. He answered her skepticism with calm persistence, unwavering in his goal to show this was genuine. His family's reaction was a firestorm of rage. His father's icy quiet, his uncles declaring Isabella a risk that needed to be silently eliminated. With terrifying resolve, Luca deflected each attack, establishing that any harm to his daughter or her mother was an unforgivable transgression. She observed him burn connections built over decades without a hint of regret. Then, one Tuesday, he called the media and convinced her to join him. Her very being rebelled. It seemed a disastrous error, like throwing their child to the ravenous press. But his reasoning was sound. Letting rumors fester was a bigger threat than controlling the story and declaring their own reality. So she waited in the wings, Isabella's tiny hand clasped in her own, while Luca walked to the lectern to reveal the daughter hidden from the world. The moment felt surreal, a bizarre and lucid nightmare she couldn't comprehend. She registered the collective gasp from the media as this intensely guarded man dismantled his own fortifications. Luca's tone was unwavering. Today, I am announcing I have a 4-year-old daughter, Isabella Sophia Marchetti, of whose existence I was only recently made aware. Luca's tone echoed with a finality that precluded any argument. Isabella is my child and successor. She will be afforded every protection and asset this family possesses. Any objections can be brought straight to me. He motioned them to the stage, and Isabella clung to her, frightened by the camera flashes. The moment they were beside him, Luca lifted her, cradling her to his chest like a precious jewel. He announced, "This is my daughter, and this is Sophia, her mother, and my ex-wife." His silent directive was unmistakable. Their privacy was sacrosanct, as they were now an immutable part of his life. The room exploded in a chaotic volley of questions, yet Luca was the tranquil eye of the hurricane, one arm a shield for Isabella, his other hand planted on Sophia's back. They posed for precisely 3 pictures, then he guided them off stage to a waiting car. His security team, braced for the aftermath, moved them out as the shockwave hit. The tension left Sophia shaking, but Isabella babbled about the lights, perceiving a show, not the upheaval that had just reshaped their lives. "You were both perfect," he whispered. Inside the car's silent cabin, his hand sought hers, their fingers lacing together with the familiarity grown over the last 6 weeks. "It's finished. The world knows she exists and is protected by me. No more shadows. It is time to create the life I denied you 5 years ago." "Your family will turn our lives into a nightmare over this," she cautioned. "Your father's gaze was murderous. My father can accept this or not. The choice is made. My priorities are clear." He lifted her hand, kissing her knuckles. "You and Isabella are my clan now. The rest is static." Later, with Isabella soundly asleep, they shared wine on her little balcony, wrapped in a peaceful quiet built from weeks of soft talks and co-parenting. He'd been remaining longer every night, finding excuses to stay well after their daughter was in bed. They'd settled into a pattern that bordered on the dream she once held before the real world broke it. "I have a question for you," he started, his voice suddenly serious. "And I require absolute truth." She grew wary, put down her wine, and gave him her full attention. The prelude was Wada. "I want us to have a genuine opportunity this time. No rash commitments, no pledges we can't keep. I mean actually dating, constructing something from the ruins." He moved, taking her hands. "I know I have no right, but I must ask. The last 6 weeks have illuminated all that I lost, and I will not go back to a life devoid of you. Luca, there is a child involved. We can't just date casually with our lives so intertwined." "Then our dating will be purposeful," he replied, "with sincerity and truth to create something durable, not fall back into the toxicity that broke us." His thumbs drew patterns on her skin. "But I love you. I never ceased loving you, even believing you were lost to me. I want the opportunity to be the man you deserved." "I am afraid," she admitted, petrified to open my heart, just to see it all disintegrate when things get difficult. "So we set boundaries," he proposed. "Regular communication. We make certain both our needs are met, not a one-sided sacrifice." He drew nearer, their brows nearly touching. "I've learned my lesson. Love is not a passive state. It's a thing you must consistently defend. And now I am prepared to put in the effort, not just assume your presence while I neglect you." "A single condition," she said. "If this happens, we see a therapist, jointly. We require a professional to guide us through our history without igniting a conflict." "Agreed. I will arrange for this city's finest. We can begin at once." His smile was gentle, brimming with optimism. "Any other terms?" "You must vow that the moment you feel stressed, you will say so. No more vanishing and leaving me to wonder." "I promise. Absolute candor, even when it is difficult." He framed her face, his touch a gentle question. "May I now, truly?" This was no counterfeit gesture for their daughter's sake. "Yes." The kiss was a known country, yet infinitely deeper, collapsing years of anguish and desperate love into a singular moment of convergence. His fingers threaded through her hair as hers seized his shirt, a frantic bid to close a 5-year abyss. When they broke apart, breathless, he rested his forehead on hers, a soft laugh escaping him. I have wanted to do that from the instant I saw you in the bakery. And I have wanted you to for nearly as long, she confessed, even as every rational part of me declared it a ruinous path. Do you still believe it is a ruinous path? Oh, unequivocally. This stands as perhaps the most catastrophic decision I could possibly engineer. She kissed him again with more softness. But I am choosing it. I am finished insulating my heart from the possibility of happiness. The remainder of the night was spent on that balcony, navigating the new reality they now faced, and for the first time in 5 years, she allowed herself to believe a fortress could be built from the ruins of their history. 3 months on, while she put the final touches on a cake for Isabella's 5th birthday, Luca's arms encircled her waist, his kiss to her neck a familiar and potent current. Even after months of this renewed courtship, his casual affection still disarmed her. The backyard is a spectacle. Isabella is going to be ecstatic over that bounce house. You're overindulging her. That structure is larger than my entire flat. Our flat, he proposed. You already spend 4 nights a week at my home. Let us make this tangible, he murmured, his grip firming at her waist. I want you to move in. Formally. Bring your life here and let us be a single unit, ending this fractured existence. It was a proposition of immense gravity. I am ready for it. Ready to construct the life we were always meant to share. He turned her to him, his gaze demanding hers. I love you, and I love our daughter, and I want our world contained under one roof, to see you at dawn and at dusk. And the conflicts? What happens when proximity exposes the fractures we've managed to ignore? We will confront them, he stated, as adults, using the very methods our therapist provided, and we will walk through that fire stronger. You present it with such clarity. It is never clear. It requires work. It requires compromise. It is the act of choosing this, daily, especially on the days it is painful. But I am ready for that labor if you are. Before she could answer, Isabella and her friends swarmed the kitchen, a tempest of joy over a bounce house, demanding their presence outside. Luca simply released her with a quiet laugh, letting their daughter lead him into the garden's cheerful pandemonium. She watched him depart, this man who had metaphorically set fire to his own history to forge a new one around them, who shows up day after day, engaging in the difficult work, demonstrating his transformation with every action. And she realized that in the past 3 months, the fear had quietly vanished. She hadn't even perceived its exit. Far later, with the party's energy faded and Isabella asleep in a guest room, a trace of frosting on her cheek, she found him on the terrace overlooking the city. She wrapped her arms around his waist from behind. Ask me the question again. Ask you which one? To share a home with me? To build a life with me? To make that terrifying and monumental leap? He turned in her arms, his eyes burning with a fragile hope. Come and live with me. Be my wife when you decide you are ready. Let us build this family and this future together. It was an affirmation for moving in, a potential for marriage, and a definitive commitment to what lay ahead. His kiss felt like a contract, a pledge, and the deep exhalation of a long-held breath. And in his embrace, with their child sleeping nearby, she finally let herself trust the narrative of a second chance. and she understood that sometimes the epilogue is more profound than the original text. 6 months later. The threat materialized on a Tuesday. It was delivered to Luca's office in an unmarked envelope bearing no return address. The message within felt like ice in her veins when he showed her, his body taut with a ferociously controlled rage. They know about Isabella. They have identified her as my point of leverage, and they intend to use her to compel my cooperation in a business affair I have declined. Who are they? Who is reckless enough to test you after you demonstrated so clearly the fate of those who threaten this family? New players, challengers from outside the established families. They are men who operate without the codes of conduct our world has long observed. He was pacing, a dangerous energy pouring from him, a clear signal of his violent intent. They perceive my devotion to family as a weakness. They intend to turn my love for you both into a weapon against me. What is your strategy? The same one I always employ when what is mine is threatened. I will remove them from the equation and broadcast the message that loving my family did not make me weak. It only made him more lethal than before. His face was a mask of cold resolve, the predator he had once been re-emerging from beneath the facade of the devoted father. And she understood that to love Luca Marchetti was to accept the complete, brutal architecture of his being, including the part that committed terrible acts for their protection. She could only hope he would proceed with caution. She begged him not to be killed or captured, not with their victory so near. He swore he was always meticulous, that his return to her was a certainty as he held her tightly. But then he disclosed the devastating truth. With their identities now known in his world, they had become his greatest vulnerability, and he swore he would take any measure necessary to ensure their safety. She consented, choosing to believe he could wield that darkness without being consumed by it. He professed his love, asserting they were more valuable than his organization, his name, or his own life. She told him to conclude his business and return home. He left with his men, leaving her to face the fact that every enemy now knew his precise breaking point. Yet watching him with their daughter, she knew her own choice would have been identical. What they had built was worth the entirety of the risk, the fear, and the unending struggle to protect it. He had systematically dismantled his former existence and constructed a new universe that revolved around them. And now the entire city understood that Sofia and Isabella Marchetti represented both the primary vulnerability and the ultimate source of power for its most dangerous man. And she was staking everything on the belief that his devotion, when fused with his inherent savagery, would be sufficient to defeat any darkness that came for them. The end.